truly. The tales and songs fall utterly short of your enormity, O Smaug, the stupendous.
Alright then, we got part 2 of Bilbo Badass's story, The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug.
I'm going to stop you there. He's not Smaug. Everyone knows that his name is Smaug.
Yeah,
his name.
Yeah, I am gonna agree with you. He has been Smaug to me since I was a little kid. You know, he's a fucking right. Okay, the reason he's called Smaug, in my mind at least, is that he's a dragon. He puffs out flames and billows smoke. Smoke like fucking a bit like Smaug. I don't know. It just fits to me. I don't think I've been too fucking ridiculous, but apparently
you don't have a degree in Elvish, though, do you?
Look, I'm not like a kind of an Elvish doctor or anything, but I always thought it was Smaug. But apparently, if you actually go into the kind of appendices and all the writings of language and everything that Tolkien did, it should be Smaug because of the way.
I know people are saying that, but I mean, the appendices weren't written then. When he wrote that book, it was just Smaug, and when he wrote that book, it was just a magical ring. There's a lot of stuff that changed after The Hobbit come out.
Well, yeah, you're definitely right. The Hobbit's a kid's book, which it still amazes me that they've decided to make this 3 films. But I got to say, this second entry has at least kind of put one of my concerns to bed. In that, I was thinking, do they really have enough content in this short children's story to stretch it over 3 films to match Lord of the Rings, which was a 3-book epic adults like high fantasy saga? And I don't really have an issue with that. I think they've got enough here that they've kind of added in through the appendices that they're certainly not stretching things as far as sheer content is going. What they are stretching is plot structure. This is a story that was blatantly, and this is a movie that was blatantly made with 2 movies in mind, as far as the way they kind of pace events. Because while there's a shit ton happening in this movie, it's pacing's all over the fucking place.
Yeah. This is like, there's so much good set pieces and there's so much good action, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun, this film.
Oh yeah, it's probably it's probably the kind of biggest, most bombastic adventure film I've seen for, all year probably, really.
Yeah. There's and each set piece just keeps going on, and not in a bad way, but it's a good set piece should, introduce some sort of action that's going on, and then the longer it goes on, it needs to keep it fresh, it changes it up slightly.
And I think
there's a scene early on in this film that just does that. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah,
in that sense. But
I know you're talking about the scene with the river and the barrels.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. It's amazing. That's so much fun.
Good. Yeah, it's a great scene, and it kind of goes on and changes it up, and it's a lot of fun, and you've got so many different things happening on it. You've got the dwarfs in the barrels floating down the river. You got the orcs trying to kill them. Then you got the fucking elves, Legolas and crew coming back.
Yeah, he is.
And Legolas, goddamn, they've
looks old as shit.
Do you think so? I think he looked fucking too young almost. They did so much CGI on him, I remember hearing that he was one of the hardest things to do in this movie.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I don't think he looked old at all.
It's not that he looked old. He just Legolas was so lean and almost skinny in Lord of the Rings. He just looks bulkier now.
I seriously think I thought the only thing that changed with him was that they made his eyes incredibly icy blue. Whereas I don't remember that. I don't remember that being so prevalent in the Lord of the Rings films, but it did give him a kind of. Think it was. Yeah, but it did give him this kind of. Magical, almost slightly, something a bit strange about them, something a bit off. Obviously not human about them, which was all right, and they kind of maybe carry that over into the other elves as well. Because you see a lot of the elves in this movie, the whole kind of early part of the film's going through, Brightwood come Mirkwood by the time this film goes along, which is, Legolas and his father,
Thranduil,
the king of the Wood Elves. It's his kingdom. And of course you've got...
Can you see that that's there alone, the Elf Kingdom, is the reason why they wanted Del Toro to direct this, because that whole scene when Thranduil's interrogating Thorin looked like it was ripped out of Pan's Labyrinth. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Del Toro would have, this with all the creature designs and stuff. You could tell this is a film he could have maybe done. There's maybe even a bit of essence of his involvement to a degree in some of the designs. But yeah, I mean, there's shit tons happens to this movie. You've got the elves of Mirkwood. You've got giant spiders attacking them. You've got Bjorn the shapeshifter. You've got fucking Lake Town, and then finally you've got Smaug the dragon, played by voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch.
No, motion capture as well.
Well, yes, he did motion capture. Yeah,
and apparently he went to the London Zoo Reptile House to watch the Komodo dragons and iguanas just to get in character.
Well, as long as he earned his money.
He's a character actor. What else can you say?
Yeah, and to be honest, I gotta say, fucking Smaug was my favourite character in this movie.
He's awesome. It was so well realised. And so dangerous as well. I mean, when you read in The Hobbit, it's a kid's book. He's like this, he's a little trickster. Oh, don't let him breathe fire. In this, it's like, fuck, we will die if we piss this dude off. And one thing he is massive, he is powerful. Oh, God.
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing me and you were talking about before we came in, before we saw this movie was that I think I voiced the concern that I've never seen dragons done very well in films, as far as I can remember. They always seem to be kind of botched or look a bit shitty or just don't really fit with what dragons really are. And fucking Smaug really ticks all the boxes. He is this ginormous leviathan who is incredibly... He has such a presence about him. He's blatantly this ancient and powerful creature. And, you're perfectly right saying he feels dangerous. He feels malevolent. And you can kind of appreciate why Gandalf's maybe in the first film, he was he's basically encouraged this quest to take out Smaug so that he doesn't end up teaming up with Sauron on his eventual return, or at least causing trouble while Sauron's, returning. And, you very much get the impression of, these dragons are fucking dangerous. It's almost strange to think that the Balrog scene in the Fellowship of the Ring, the Balrogs were the demons that were kind of the dragon tamers in the ancient times in Middle-earth.
All right, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, because I got the impression that the dragons are far fucking worse.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the inside of Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, also helps to set the scene because it was so vast. And I mean, I saw it in IMAX 3D, and it felt like that mountain went on forever inside. Like those mines were that deep. Yeah. And to have the giant dragon flying through such a big but enclosed space, it was really good.
Oh yeah, it was great. Smaug was definitely the highlight for me on this film. But as things goes, this movie does cram a shit ton in. And in the early portion of this movie, Bilbo as a character gets a lot of spotlight. Martin Freeman again is, we've said it about the first movie. He is a perfect Bilbo Baggins. He's a perfect Hobbit. He really, really captures the essence of that character. But at the same time, he also is a very different Hobbit from any of the ones you see in Lord of the Rings, which I liked. It gives him his own identity. He isn't just Frodo, or he isn't just Sam. He's his own entity and his own character. However, after the initial kind of maybe 45 minutes, hour, he just gets forgotten about until his confrontation with Smaug. He is barely fucking in it. He barely has a line, and the dwarves come forward. You've got Richard Armitage playing Thorin, getting more of the spotlight. Ken Stott returning as Balin. The dwarves very much take the center of kind of events, and he's very much forgotten about until they kind of basically thrust him into the jaws of Smaug and tell him to do his job. You've also got, obviously, Ian McKellen's back in this movie as Gandalf, who goes off and does his own stuff. I mean, really, if this was just strictly following the books, he wouldn't have been in this movie practically past the 10-minute mark. But,
yeah, because in the Hobbit book, doesn't he just nick off and you don't know why, and then knocks later on? Yeah,
pretty much he fucks off and then turns up later. But in this, it kind of shows you what he's doing when he has buggered off. And I'm under the impression that while it does, in essence, follow what happens in the kind of established appendices, they are changed up for the sake of making it a movie. But I liked what Gandalf went through.
I've got to say, When Gandalf's first location, when he leaves the dwarves to go off into Mirkwood, and he heads up somewhere in the north. It's not exactly revealed where he's going, but then, like, while he's in there, it just gives you one tiny piece of information. You realise exactly where he is and what he's looking for, and you're like, oh fuck! And it was so like dark and creepy, that bit. And when Sylvester McCoy's eccentric Radagast turns, he was like, "This isn't a very nice place to meet." That's like the lowest level of distaste you could possibly have for this place.
Oh yeah, it's a bad place they go to, and just the place itself was really fucking severe and dark and just awful. But yeah, like, that was a cool bit.
Climbing them steps to get up to it. It was so much harder than the dwarfs going into the mountain. And how much screen time did they get? As Gandalf's like, yeah, I'll just walk up these. I'll nearly die.
Yeah, he's I do like Ian McKellen. I think he's great as Gandalf, and he just gets some good bits. And there's actually one bit in particular. I don't want to obviously go into it, but I really, really liked. And I mean, I knew it was coming, and I think people who were interested in kind of Middle Earth lore and everything knew what was afoot.
Yeah.
In that kind of subplot anyway, but it kind of pulls, it pulls the curtain back and shows it in full kind of glory here, and it was interesting.
Very tastefully done, very cleverly done, and it kind of, harkens back. It's a little almost nod to the original Lord of the Rings series. I've really enjoyed that bit.
Yeah, I did as well. I thought it was good, and you know what? It meant we got more Ian McKellen, which was good because, as we say, he could have been in it 3 minutes and then fucked off and not been in it till the end of the end of the third movie. But yeah, I mean, overall, sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, I think that's why they made the choice to have Bjorn in at the start, because if you remember they didn't put Tom Bombadil in Lord of the Rings. It's like, oh, they go to this guy's house and then they're safe for a bit and then they leave again. That's all they do to Bjorn, really. But if you didn't have him in, like, where's Gandalf going to be at the start of the film?
Isn't Bjorn, though, in the Battle of the Five Armies, which is going to be in the third movie?
Yeah, but they don't need him. They could have easily written him out. They've already got 13 main characters here.
Yeah, but I think that would have caused the backlash. I mean, there's one thing writing Tom Bombadil out, and then there's another writing this really badass mountain man who can shapeshift into a fucking huge bear and kill orcs. Especially when he's going to play a part in the kind of the big final climax of the story. I don't think anybody missed Tom Bombadil and his fairy wife. Tom Bombadil is so pointless that he was even cut out of the radio play, which like the BBC did, I think, back in the 80s.
That covered everything, didn't it?
That didn't change very much at all, except him. It just basically did away with him. He's never been in any adaptation of Lord of the Rings he's been cut out of, other than he's only ever been in the book, really. And I'm not upset about that, to be honest.
No.
But yeah, I mean, you mentioned before, but you've got a lot set in Lake Town, which is this kind of ramshackle flotilla of a city in the middle of the lake that's near Erebor and Smaug. And this is a lot of time spent with Bard the Bowman, who's played by Luke Evans, who, I gotta say, I don't really know a lot about Luke Evans, but I do know he was the villain in Fast and Furious 6.
All right. Is he Welsh?
Is he? Yeah, he is, actually. He's from Pontypool.
It just seemed weird that, like, in the middle of Lake Town, just his whole family was just Welsh, and I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, he is actually Welsh. So there you go. I liked him, actually. I thought he was good.
I thought he was good as well. It's just a shame that it's sort of all of his stuff, all of his scenes, were to like get the main characters moving on their way, but then he didn't get any resolution in this film.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to, all of his character stuff is set up for the next one, really.
I know. But I did like him as the part. I thought he was good. And
yeah, he was good.
He's like the kind of human hero in this, if you could say there is one. But it's talking about another character in Lake Town, and that is, of course, the Master of Lake Town, played by Stephen Fry. And
he was delightfully wicked.
Yeah, he was like this proper greasy kind of, I don't know, like this shyster politician. He was great, man. I love Stephen Fry. You could tell he was having such a good time with that character. And there's his makeup and his costume, it just make him look so grotesque.
I just liked how the Stephen Fry would just go and do the opposite of whatever Bard was doing, just so he could like oppose him. And
he's basically just this completely shyster politician who would play to the fancies of the crowd, regardless of whether it was a good idea or not.
And I just love how Thorin is just like completely playing them against each other at one point, and Bard doesn't really want a part of it, but he has to, and then, Steve Fry's like, yes, yes.
Yeah, I really did like Stephen Fry. But yeah, I mean, we said,
I liked. Do you know who else I liked?
Who?
Evangeline Lilly.
I did, actually. I thought, Jesus Christ, here they go, shoehorning another motherfucking character in who didn't exist in any of the fucking established lore just because they need a woman. But you know what? No, actually, she was pretty good. I liked her. She had a good arc, and I can kind of see I can appreciate what they're trying to do with this they're trying to set up this kind of weird love triangle between her, Legolas, and Killy?
Yes, Killy.
Yeah, Killy.
Yeah.
And as much as I think that was maybe a bit awkward, I can at least appreciate what they're trying to do. And
I thought it was nice enough.
Yeah. It kind of, it's almost doing what like Legolas and Gimli's friendship did in Lord of the Rings. Like they're kind of, these races don't like each other, but it shows they can find common ground and become great friends. In fact, speaking of Legolas and Gimli's friendship, I fucking loved the little inside joke about that.
When he pulled out Cloyne's like photos.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking hilarious. But
that was good.
Just nice little winks and nods. But I think that's actually something that's worth bringing up here. These Hobbit movies aren't really an adaptation of the Hobbit book. They are Lord of the Rings prequels, first and foremost.
This is all setting up Lord of the Rings rather than trying to tell the story of the Hobbit, which I'm not too, I don't think that's a bad thing. It allows them to tie things together in a greater fashion because people feel more invested in the characters if it's a prequel.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's kind of it's almost like the Star Wars prequel trilogy.
Yeah, and it's all bright and colourful now, and
a lot of CGI.
Yeah,
and I mean,
definitely less CGI in this film than the first Hobbit film, which is one of the things that I quite liked about it.
I don't agree, actually. I don't agree at all. I think there was more, but they'd spent more time on it. And I still don't think it's as good as practical effects that were used in Lord of the Rings.
I think a lot of the, I thought a lot of the orc sort of minion people were prosthetics this time around.
Nope, they were pretty much all CGI. In fact, Azog, the White Orc, he was obviously he's all CGI, and he was in the first one.
Yeah.
And in the first film, you could tell it wasn't great. Here, he looks a lot better. But his son, Bolg, who is basically this even bigger fucking orc. Well, the guy who kind of mocapped, the guy who originally played him was Conan Stevens, who played the Mountain in season 1 of Game of Thrones. He's this big fucking guy.
Yeah.
In fact, he isn't in Game of Thrones anymore because he went off to do The Hobbit. Now, I've seen pictures of Bolg in full prosthetics, and he looks completely fucking different than he did in the final film. In fact, I'm going to send you a picture if I can dig one up here, because he looked so much better in his practical effects than this kind of...
Yeah.
I honestly think Bolg's final appearance was... they CGI'd over the top of what he looked like, really. And I think his final appearance was more in line with what Azog looked like in the original, which was slightly ropey. I don't understand when...
I would agree with that.
I don't understand why when they've proven in Lord of the Rings they can do really good orcs with practical effects, and they went ahead and did it anyway on set, only then to paint over it with ropey CGI for no reason. I just think
it's a shame on them, definitely.
Yep.
So, never mind.
So I honestly think most of the orcs were CGI, and I was sitting there going, why have they done this? It doesn't make any sense. They were blatantly, obviously, prosthetic covered actors at one point, and they don't look any better. So I think this film, it does suffer from the first film in that it uses too much CGI. They're kind of sitting back going, well, CGI is so good these days. Why do we have to bother? But you know what? Fuck it. No, it worked better with Lord of the Rings. Oh, God, I said I would never hark back to them. But it worked better. it worked better, this kind of... they almost played it a bit more dangerously with what they did with the effects in Lord of the Rings, whereas here they're very playing it safe. It's like, CGI is safe. We know what we can do with CGI.
Yeah.
But it doesn't create this... It doesn't create quite as good a feel, because when you do get practical effects right, they're unbeatable. Really, they're fantastic. So I'm still a bit pissed off with that, but I do think the CGI is slightly better across the board here. And
just
certainly
the dragon's top, because you're not going to be able to use that practically, really.
Well, no, I mean, obviously there's some things that are never going to be practical, but...
I've got to say the liquid gold.
Yes, that was cool.
I didn't think that looked great, though, like, quality-wise.
Well,
I'm sure
I don't
liquid
know.
golds look differently than the one they made.
I'm not sure what it looks like, but I don't think it looked like that.
Yeah, that looked like butter. It was... I mean, maybe it does look like that, and maybe I'm wrong, but...
I don't know. I'm not really wealthy enough to have vats of like molten gold kicking around, and I've never really got round to going trying to retake Erebor myself. So
and then covering a dragon with it as well.
Exactly. So
it was cool when Smaug flew up afterwards, and then he just shook all the gold off, and it all sprinkled down. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some really good use of CGI effects here.
And when the camera, the very first scene of the film is actually in Bree, of all places, and it looks so much bigger and more full of life than in Lord of the Rings.
Well, did you notice Peter Jackson's repeated cameo?
I did.
I love that.
Presumably, is that man's father eating carrots?
Well, yes, I would think so, seeing as these are 60 years apart. I actually came across somebody having a go at that. I was going, well, I don't see how he can be the same man because it's set 60 years apart. For fuck's sake, it's a cameo. Let it go, man. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
People like us enjoyed that. It was like the first person you saw in the film as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good. You said you saw this in IMAX, but you didn't see it in high frame rate, though, did you?
No, there's not many IMAXs that were doing it in high frame rate, because we did look, because I wanted to see what the difference was compared to the first film, but no, it's just IMAX.
I was kind of in the opposite boat to you. I wanted to see it on IMAX, but I booked it too late and it was sold out, so I just went ahead and went to a normal size theatre, but they were showing it in high frame rate, and it's the first high frame rate movie I've ever seen. And I don't know if I like it. I'm really, really in two minds for it, but for overall effect, I think it works against a movie. Now, the reason that is because that when you have these huge sweeping set pieces, it looks, and especially the CGI, looks really sharp and has a lot of depth to it, and it feels very immersive. There's no motion blur that we're just accustomed to. Everything's so pinprick sharp. It's really hard to describe without just sitting down somebody and watching a film in high frame rate. But it's really impressive. So when you've got these giant sweeping action sequences, it feels really chaotic. It feels like you're kind of in the scene rather than just watching it. But then on the flip side of that, the dramatic aspect of these some of the scenes is completely negated, and it just feels like actors in silly costumes sitting around talking bollocks.
Did it ever make everything look like a Spanish soap opera?
It does kind of. It's really weird. It's really hard to explain. It feels more like akin to a live event than a movie. You haven't got that kind of degree of separation that provides this kind of cinematic quality. It's so, I don't know, man. Because the bits with Smaug look fucking amazing, and I got to say, high frame rate. If there's one thing you can say about it, it benefits 3D no end. It looks so much more it has such a depth to it, and it looks so much crisper that. Yeah, this was fantastic 3D, and I don't even think it was a particularly well. I don't think 3D was used particularly well. It just looked good. It had a really good feel, but I don't know, man. The drama was completely drained out of this. I mean, Ian McKellen's got such gravitas, but here it just kind of felt like
he's a crackpot old fool.
Yeah, he just felt like a kind of crazy old guy talking bollocks, wandering around the set. He didn't, Ian McKellen wasn't even invited to be in this film. He just turned up and wandered around the set. That's what it kind of felt like. And there's a bit where Turiel and Killy are talking in the jails of Mirkwood, and I was thinking this is meant to be really touching and kind of sweet, but I'm not getting any sense. I feel like I'm the guy sitting in the cell next to them just going, oh, for fuck's sake, shut up, man. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear it. It's just bollocks. And I was thinking, there's scenes like this in Lord of the Rings that carry a lot of weight and are quite tender or quite emotional. And I don't know, I think the high frame rate overall works against films, because while it makes CGI and the action pop and the 3D look a lot better, a lot of the things lose the gravitas. And it kind of it hurts, the more dramatic aspect of this film. So I don't know, man. I would love to go and see this film again, just in normal, just 24 frames a second? I think that's the normal. Just to kind of see how it should be seen. But high frame rates is peculiar. I don't know if I like it all that much, but at the same time, I'll probably go and see the next one in it as well, just because.
Yeah, the next one's going to be a lot of action as well, so maybe it'll be worth it. Because I'm assuming that the battle scene, which is going to happen, is going to be pretty spectacular, and maybe high frame rate will benefit that.
Yeah, we'll see. I got to say the Smaug looked fucking great because of the added depth and clarity. He really did look good. I was very impressed. I'm not often impressed with CGI anymore, but he looked pretty fucking good, and I think the high frame rate did help that. So yeah, I'm a mixed bag, and I'm trying to take into account what I thought of the film with high frame rate in mind, and I say I wouldn't mind going to see this again just to see it in normal 24, just to kind of see it from the other side of the coin.
I would always recommend to see anything in IMAX. I'm just starting to come around to the idea that it's just the best way to watch a film.
I fucking love IMAX. And haven't they just released or come out with this fucking big, even bigger format?
Oh, have they?
I'm sure they have. I don't know the details, so I'll be quiet about it, but I'm sure they have.
But I just think it's just amazing. Like, honestly, the Caverns of Erebor on that huge screen with the 3D, it just looked like it went on forever. And like, it was so like awe-inspiring.
Well, that's one thing I think IMAX does well with 3D is that because it kind of encapsulates you in it and makes you feel much like more part of the scene. Like I remember seeing Avatar in 3D on the IMAX, and you felt like you were kind of standing in this forest of the kind of Pandoran forest, and I do like IMAX. I think it's great. I really do wish I'd been able to see this on the IMAX, but too many people also wanted to see it. They're in short supply, IMAX cinemas.
Yeah, we need more.
I'm going to try and get one built on the end of my house in my garage or something, but I don't know.
Can you get like a scaled down IMAX so that the ratio is still the same just for your living room?
I bet you could.
Yeah, I would do that.
You might have to get like a projector or something, and it might cost shit ton. I might have a look after we record this. Actually, we might be onto something. But you'd also have to buy IMAX quality, IMAX aspect ratio movies, though, and I don't know where to get them. They certainly don't sell them down Asda.
No, they don't sell much down at Asda at the minute.
Do they not?
Can't buy it. Yeah, everything I want sold out. All the DVDs I want to buy for people for Christmas, which I can't go into now. I've been in 4 times to buy 4 different titles, and no, none of them are in. They've got 800 copies of Man of Steel.
Well, the reason they've got 800 copies is because no one's fucking buying it.
I know. It's really pissing me off.
But
every time I go in and I ask for a DVD, he's like, I don't have that one, but do you want Man of Steel? I'm like, no, I don't.
No more nonsense. Stop asking people. All right, maybe the next one with Batman in it, but no fucking Superman. Where the fuck? Yeah, one other thing that bugged me about this movie, and it bugged you as well, I think.
Are we going to talk about the ending?
The fucking ending, yeah. And I don't want to say what the ending is, but it's so fucking abrupt that it's borderline outrageous.
You know when you're watching The Return of the King, and it's like, oh, I think it's the ending, so I'll get up and leave, and then it's like, oh, it's not the ending. This happened the exact opposite way around. This was like, oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, there's like a ballad starts playing, and then Peter Jackson's name comes on the screen. He's like, you fucking cock.
I know, it was horrible. It was so abrupt. I felt cheap. I felt cheated.
Felt used.
I just felt like a soggy Kleenex being discarded. It was just bullshit, man. It didn't give us a fucking climax, all right? It gave us half of one and then cut out just as it was reaching its crescendo. Now, all right, I've been told by a few people that, oh, well, why are you getting so bent out of shape about it? There's going to be a third film. Yes, in a fucking year's time. And I don't care. I paid money to see a complete film, and I'm sorry, but that's not what we got with this, all right? We got a goddamn Matrix Reloaded. We got something that didn't have a fucking ending, didn't have a conclusion, didn't have a complete self-contained arc, and that's why I come back to my point that I mentioned earlier, where I said that they have plenty of content, but they don't have enough plot to structure 3 films around this story.
Yeah, there's enough, like, you can stretch the action scenes out to make 3 3-hour films, but they only have 2 endings. You've got the ending of the first film, which they managed to get in, and you're going to have the ending of the third film. This film did not have an ending. Not a single character completed an arc. Not a single, like, mini-boss, at least. None of them were offed. None of the big bosses were offed.
Well, that's
you could have done anything.
There's even a little climax, like a little kind of, as you say, mini-boss fight between Legolas and Borg, and nothing happens. I was thinking, what I didn't buy about that is, I was like, Legolas dispatches orcs by the dozen. Why can't he just kill this one? What's so special about him? Alright, he's a big fucker, but Legolas downs a fucking ginormous elephant with a quiver of arrows in Return of the King.
Yeah.
What's so difficult about this guy?
This one made his nose bleed.
I know. It was like a playground scuffle.
Yeah, it was. But even if Legolas had just killed that guy, I'd have gone, yeah, all right. You know, you could have built that fight up as the climax of the film if you'd wanted to.
I know.
You could have killed off Tauriel. She's not supposed to be there anyway. Just something.
Yeah, but yeah, the ending had me bitter. It didn't feel like it had a climax. It felt like it was purposely holding things back for the third film, just so that it could make an action-packed third part. Whereas, oh God, I've done this so many times, and I said I wouldn't. Whereas in Lord of the Rings, they didn't need to do that shit because Return of the King was so action-packed. So I'm a bit bitter about the ending.
Because I mean, the point of, you know, when we're talking about films that you release the first one and then it's a success, so you greenlight film 2 and 3, and film 2 always feels a bit like a filler film. This shouldn't have, because they knew they were doing 3 from the start. And in Lord of the Rings, you've got the overarching storyline that finishes by the end of the third film, but each film has its own climax and ending. Like, I was making this comparison. If Two Towers had finished with Gandalf like arriving at the top of that hill at Helm's Deep and going, "I told you I'd be here," cut to black, and then you see the end of Helm's Deep at the start of Return of the King. Yeah, this is essentially what happens here.
No, you're perfectly right. I think why this has come about is because originally this wasn't meant to be 3 films.
Yeah, this was meant to be 2.
And they eventually stretched it out, and I think they were really struggling to cut into place. So that did annoy me a little bit. But I think we've talked about it quite a lot now. But I think coming back to like summarising our overall opinion, what are your final thoughts on The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug?
I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favourite films of the year, and I've come away, despite the sour note at the end, I've come away enjoying it more than when I came away from the first one originally. I mean, I've since gone back to the first one, watched it, realised I was a bit harsh originally, but I definitely enjoyed this one more. I think the first one's a better film, but because I don't think you could watch this one on its own, really.
No, I agree with that. My own kind of take on it is that I think this does fix a few of the issues with the first one. I don't think there's as much preamble. It's pretty much straight into things. The CGI that is used a bit too much is at least better in this one than it was in the original. And it's basically constantly moving. It doesn't miss a beat. It's constantly moving, fast-moving action sequences that are interesting and fun and have a sense of humour. There's almost a feel of Pirates of the Caribbean in some of the kind of more humorous action sequences, but they feel better than anything done in Pirates of the Caribbean, at least since the first movie. I liked how they used the appendices in the kind of the world that was then later expanded on since the novel was written, the book was written, to flesh out this movie. I thought it was done well, and I don't think it really shit on established lore too much, enough for anybody to really get the panties in a twist about, unless you're being really pedantic.
Yeah.
Having said that, it still feels a bit like a video game in that they're on a quest and they're going from level to level, accomplishing objectives, then moving on to the next. But that's something maybe attributed to the plot. This is a straight quest rather than this sweeping fantasy epic that maybe I was expecting too much of. And the ending, the pacing overall is all over, and the ending really, really left a bad taste in my mouth. I expect more from Peter Jackson, and it really felt like it was a case of we'll make sure people come to see the third film rather than giving us a satisfying conclusion. Because hell, maybe if they do kill the dragon off, why would people go to the third movie? Because let's face it, unless you've read the book, you don't know what's coming. You think the dragon is the end game. It isn't. But maybe that's why they left them in. But regardless, I think it was cheap, and I think it's fucking akin to Matrix Reloaded, which is not a compliment. So, I mean, coming to a rating, I'm going to give this I'm going to be a bit harsher than normal because I think it deserves it for the ending. I'm going to give this a B+. It's certainly an improvement on the first movie, but it has its own problems.
Yeah, well, I'd already settled on B+. I think it's an A to A- film. I really enjoyed it thoroughly, but the ending is enough to bring it down a couple notches.
Yeah,
it's just Peter Jackson is he knows his characters. He writes all the scripts and the lines, and he could have done something. Even just an emotional climax would have sufficed. I mean, not the end of Fellowship of the Ring. All that really happens is Boromir dies. Spoilers.
Oh, come on, man! It's a pretty epic sequence.
Oh no, that's what I mean though. But he made such. What I mean is he took Boromir dies and made it the end of the film. He made it the climax. There's just nothing here, and he could have tried harder. The amount of stuff that they've gone back to shoot in pickups, he could have added in an ending.
Well, that's what's irritating, because there's such an attention to detail, and he obviously loves Middle-earth and Tolkien lore, and he gets so much right that it's frustrating when things go wrong, even just a little bit. And yeah, the ending left a bad taste. It sounds like I really didn't like this movie. I really did. And as I say, I want to go and see it again in 24 frames a second. Just I have high expectations for these movies. I fucking love Lord of the Rings. I don't know if we've ever made a big deal about it in podcasts. I think we might have mentioned it. But I've certainly made a big deal in just general conversation. They're my favourite movies. I fucking love them. They are my Star Wars. You know, they're the movies that came out in my early teenage years that just will stick with me forever. I fucking love them. I've sat and watched all 3 of the extended editions back to back, fucking twice. And, and you know, I just had higher expectations for these films, and there's some kind of choices that have knocked me a little bit and stopped them from getting to the level that... I never expected these to be as good as Lord of the Rings, but at the same time, they're not as good as I was expected. Yeah.
We don't reload our expectations, and every now and again, they still miss. And that's just... I don't think you should. But it's like if everyone says, "Oh, I don't like the Star Wars prequels," and then they list why they don't like them. We're not being as harsh as that, but it's on the same sort of level. And I agree with you. This is the movies that made me love movies, like Lord of the Rings, and just to see, you know, stuff slightly not going right for how it should be. It's hard.
It pisses me off, man. It really gets to me. But, I mean, to say that I did like this movie. It was impressive in places. I think Smaug was fucking worth the price of admission alone. He was really, really good. And, they got the dragon spot on. He looked like a dragon, and they got the look of him right. They got the feel of him right. And they got, like, the fact that, you know, dragons can talk, and they're not just these kind of mindless beasts. They are magical creatures. And I just fucking love that. You never see dragons done well in movies, and that got me really excited. But saying that, like, this, I mean, considering Erebor is meant to be, like, the greatest dwarf kingdom, I don't think the scenes in Erebor were as good as the ones in Moria.
No.
As much as Smaug was impressive and I really liked him, I still think the entire sequence in Moria and Fellowship of the Ring is so much more, like, intense and so much darker.
It's so gritty as well, and especially, like, you've got the fight in Balins too, and then the run, and then when them stairs are collapsing, so good.
I know, it is though. I get excited just talking about it, man. It's great. And this movie doesn't do that for me. Maybe it's because I'm not a kid anymore and I've got memories and emotions tied to those other movies, but it doesn't stick with me as much. But here's a fucking fun fact for your kids. I think there's at least 3 of the dwarfs in the Hobbit's party that are fucking corpses in Balin's tomb.
Yeah, it's really bleak, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, you've obviously got Balin because it's his tomb, which is Ken Stott's character. And I think you've got Ori... no, Glóin's not, because Glóin's at the Council of Elrond with Gimli.
Oh, yes.
But I think you've got Ori and Nori.
Almost like the monk haircut.
Yeah, he's like the one who's holding the book.
He's the one who... Yeah, he's the one who wrote the
the drums in the deep. And then there's, I think, the youngest one with the kind of bowl cut. He's also one of them that goes and dies. So, fucking chew on that, kids. In fact, I think by the time Lord of the Rings happens in the timeline, I'm pretty sure there's not many of the dwarves left.
No, I'm
but
sure
I don't want to. I don't want to spoil any more though.
I spoiled something for myself the other day. Even though I've read the book, I forgot stuff that happens. I felt like such. It's like, I know the ending of the Hobbit, and then I read it on Wikipedia. It's like, yeah, you'd forgotten most of that. You would have enjoyed seeing that on the cinema, getting the surprise.
I know it would have actually turned out as a surprise, but no, it's all spoiled. So yeah, I think B+ is a fair one for this. I think you're perfectly right in saying that this is probably an A or a low A overall, but the ending really does cut that off and. It give a middle finger to us, so I'm giving one right back with a fucking low mark.
Yeah. What I'm going to guess is happening, though, is that the marks they've lost on this one is because of the ending, which is the ending of the second film is going to happen in the third film, so we'll probably just move those marks along and then add it on to the third film's mark.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm predicting a gold star for the third installment.
I'm tentatively holding my breath. They have a lot of material to work with because of some of the stuff they held back from this one, but I'm really holding my breath. So we'll see. But I am looking forward to it. I'm just a bit pissed off that not only has this ended so shitty, but originally There and Back Again, which is the final part, was going to be shown in 6 months, but then that was pushed back for an entire 12. So we've got to wait yet another year to get the end of this fucking trilogy.
Yeah.
So fucking There and Back Again. It better be worth it, man.
We'll be back for another podcast in a year then, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Where are you? Come now. Don't be shy. Step into the light.